The sky of Nethari was no longer blue. It burned red with fire and smoke. Cities that once floated above crystal oceans had fallen. Giant black ships blocked the sun. The machines of the Zarn Empire roamed the streets, killing everything that moved once. The people of Nethri believed they were safe, too peaceful, too wise to be attacked. But peace meant nothing to the Zarn. They didn't come to conquer, they came to erase. Every day was worse than the last. Families hid in cold caves, whispering prayers to a sky that never answered. The elders, once proud leaders of Netheri's 10 united clans, now met in broken ruins. Their skin, soft and pale, glowed dim under the burning sky. Their eyes were tired, their hearts nearly given up. "There is no help coming," one of them said. "The galaxy has turned its back on us. They fear the Zarn," another answered, "just as we did. But we were fools. We thought kindness could stop monsters." Silence followed. No one disagreed. A small child cried in the corner, holding the hand of a parent who no longer breathed. Then, from the darkness, one voice spoke with new strength. Elder Velen, the last to vote for resistance, stood and raised a glowing crystal in his hand. "We still have the signal." Ice turned toward him. "The ancient beacon," he said. "Deep call transmitter from the old days. When our ancestors spoke to stars, it still works. One final use." Another elder frowned. "Even if it works, who will hear us?" "Oh. No one came when we asked for help before." Velen's voice was calm but heavy. "Then we stop asking. We stop begging. We send one last cry, not for aid, but for justice. It's not as victims, but as witnesses to our end." They all looked at each other, unsure. Finally, one nodded. Then another. Together, they activated the beacon, high in the mountains of Nethri's oldest temple. A golden tower reached into the sky. It had not been touched for 1,000 years. Now, it lit up again. The glowing rings of light moved along its sides. A pulse shot upward, a single signal hidden under ancient encryption, wrapped in emotion and truth. It passed through the storm clouds. It moved beyond the black ships. It flew past the moons, the outer belt, the dead satellites that had once defended the planet, and then it entered the void. The beacon carried no code for trade, no call for alliance. It was only a whisper in the dark to anyone who can hear us. "This is Nethari. We are dying." Not in silence, not in surrender, but in pain. They came with fire, with metal, with no soul. If you are out there, if you still remember what life means here, us. If you are like them, ignore this. But if you are different, come see what was lost. The signal flew on, vanishing into the stars, and the elders waited, not for rescue, not for hope, only for someone, somewhere to know that they once lived far away. Light years beyond the Nethari system, deep in the dark edge of the Orion Arm, a strange machine stirred, buried in the ice of a Deathworld moon, blinked to life. It was not Nethari. It was not part of the XR. It was Earth. The signal had reached. Ruthless, one of humanity's forgotten listening posts, still active, still listening. And now, it had something worth sending back. The signal jumped again, this time faster. To Mars, to Luna Base, to Earth, and then to Command Station Black Ridge. In orbit over Europa, General Riker stood in silence as the signal played. He was not a diplomat. He did not believe in soft voices, but the words from Nethari reached something deep in him. He looked at the officers around him. Cold eyes, sharp minds, no fear. "Prep the fleet," he said. "Don't ask permission. Don't wait for orders. Just move." A young officer blinked. "Sir, Earth has not authorized intervention." Riker turned slowly. "They will, after they see what we've done." The order went out. Fleet vengeance, a shadow force known. Only in whispers was activated. Not peacekeepers, not rescuers, Deathworlders, back on Nethari. The sky cracked open again, not with fire, but with something worse. The Dread Lance, the largest of the Zarn's harvest ships, descended over the last sanctuary city. Its engines roared like a dying god. Its weapons began to glow. Children cried. Mothers covered their mouths. Warriors clutched empty weapons. There was no defense left. And just as the beam charged to fire, the sky screamed. A blast of blue light cut across the sky like a blade. The dread lance shook. Its shield flared. And then it exploded. The pieces fell like fire rain into the sea. Everyone stared up. A black triangle passed overhead. Silent, fast. Human, then another, and another. The sky filled with shapes no one had seen before. Ships that looked like floating daggers. Armor that gleamed with silver and scarlet. No symbols, no names. Just one message sent across all open channels. This is Earth's fleet. Your signal was received. We are here. No further warning will be given. From the shadows of the ruined streets, the last Netheri survivors watched as the Empire's machines turned to respond. A new war was coming. But this time, it wasn't Netheri who had to fight. They had called into the void, and the void had answered with steel, flame, and fury. The first Earth ship descended like a silent knife through the burning clouds. It didn't flash lights or drop banners. It made no effort to speak in soft tones or calm voices. It simply hovered above the smoking ruins of the Netheri capital, and waited, behind it, dozens more arrived sharp, angular ships painted black and blood red. No curves, no beauty, just armor. Just weapons. The people of Netheri, still hiding in broken buildings and tunnels beneath the city, stared up at the sky with mixed fear and awe. For a moment, they didn't know whether to run or to kneel. Then came the sound. A drop pod. 1. Then 2. Then 10. They fell from the Earth ships like falling stars, metal capsules crashing into the ground, sending shockwaves through cracked streets. As the dust settled, they opened with a hiss, and from each pod stepped a human. Tall, armored, eyes hidden behind black visors. Their bodies looked like walking machines, but they moved with terrifying speed and purpose. They didn't speak. They didn't look around. They hunted in the heart of the fallen city. A Zarn patrol dragged a group of Netheri civilians toward a transport cage. The Netheri children cried. The guards hissed and jabbed them forward with energy rods. Then came the silence. The kind of silence that only happens before something terrible. A loud crack split the air. One of the Zarn guards dropped headless. Another turned on, vanished in a burst of blue plasma. The others tried to run. They didn't make it 3 steps from the smoke. The first Earth soldier emerged, a monster in armor. Didn't run. He walked slowly, steadily, and every shot he fired was death. The Netheri prisoners stared at him in shock. He said nothing, simply nodded once, then turned and vanished into the shadows. Above the city, General Riker stood aboard the Vindicator. Watching the ground war unfold, his second-in-command, Colonel Harrow, stepped beside him. Ground teams reporting successful infiltration, Harrow said. Minimal resistance. The enemy isn't ready for us. Riker nodded. They shouldn't be. This isn't a war. It's a message. Harrow raised an eyebrow. A message to who? To everyone, Riker said. The Zarn, the galaxy. Even Earth Command. They need to remember what we are. What are we, sir? Harrow asked carefully. Riker's voice dropped. Deathworlders. Elsewhere on the battlefield, Selena, young Netheri healer, moved through the rubble, searching for survivors. She had grown up believing violence was always wrong, that mercy was stronger than blades. But today she saw blood, fire, death, and something worse than monsters. Humans. She turned a corner and froze. A human soldier stood in front of her, dragging the crushed body of a Zarn captain. The alien's armor was torn apart. Its weapon was broken. The human looked at her but didn't raise his weapon. She trembled. Are you here to help us? She whispered. The soldier said nothing. He looked down at the Zarn corpse. Then, back at her. Help? No, he said, voice distorted through his helmet. We came to end this. Then he walked past her, leaving behind only silence. The Nathari had prayed for rescue. What they got instead were warriors without mercy. The humans didn't ask for thanks, didn't speak of peace or rebuilding. They only destroyed every. Zarn patrol vanished within hours. Towers once thought invincible were brought down by Earth shock squads. Even the air began to change quiet. Heavy with fear, but not Nathari fear. Zarn fear. Back aboard the Vindicator. Riker watched another enemy installation collapse under orbital fire. "Sir," a voice crackled through comms. "We've confirmed no civilians inside. Target destroyed." Riker didn't reply. He didn't need to. He simply marked the next target. These weren't battles. They were executions. But not all humans agreed with the method. Lieutenant Mira Cross, leading a recon unit, paused as she passed through a destroyed school. She saw the bodies of Nathari children caught in the crossfire of a collapsed enemy base. "Sir," she whispered to her squad captain, "we're not just killing the enemy anymore." Captain Voss didn't answer. His armor was spattered with dust and blood, sir. She pressed again. He looked at her, then away. War doesn't have clean hands. As day turned to night, Earth soldiers began taking positions across the capital. Fires still burned. Smoke still filled the sky, but the Zarn were gone. Slaughtered, fled, wiped out. Only ashes remained. Selen watched from the rooftop of a broken home. She looked up at the massive Earth. Ships in orbit. They didn't feel like saviors. They felt like a new kind of threat. She wondered if the humans would leave. She wondered if they even knew how. Back on the Vindicator, Riker sat alone in his command chamber. Reports scrolled across his screen: victories, kill counts. City zones secured, no mention of peace. He leaned forward, staring at the silent planet below. "They called for help," he whispered. "Gave them something better." His eyes narrowed. "We gave them fear." The Nethari weren't sure what tomorrow would bring, but one thing was clear. The Zarn were no longer their greatest threat. Because now, Earth had arrived, and Earth had brought no peace. The sun rose over Nathari, for the first time in weeks, without smoke blotting the sky. The fire had quieted. The streets were no longer filled with Zarn war machines. There was no sound of airstrikes or screams. But the silence wasn't peace. It was something else, heavy, cold, watching. Because Earth's soldiers were still there, and they weren't leaving. In the main city of Alanrith, once the shining heart of Nethari culture, armored Earthwalkers now patrolled the streets. They moved in perfect formation. No emotion. No hesitation. Their steps echoed on cracked stone roads. Above them, human drones buzzed like insects, scanning rooftops and alleyways. The Zarn had ruled with fear. Now, Earth ruled with control. Selen walked through the ruins of the old market, her white healer robes stained with soot. Once this market had been full of music and food and joy. Now, it was lined with Earth tech metal crates, communication towers, power barriers humming with blue light. She passed an Earth soldier standing guard.
"Aye."
His helmet covered his face, but she felt his eyes tracking her. She didn't speak. Neither did he, but she could feel it. Distrust, not hate, but not trust either. Just power. Unquestioned, unshaken power across the city. A meeting took place inside a damaged cathedral. Tevin, a Nethari historian, and quiet, voiced in the resistance, stood at the edge of a discussion he didn't ask for. Around him were Earth officers, their faces cold and unreadable. "We've removed all Zarn presence," one officer said. "You're safe now." Tevin tilted his head. "And why are your cannons still pointed at our cities?" The officer didn't flinch. "Standard security in case of resurgence." Another human added, "You need help rebuilding. Earth is ready to guide you, provide leadership. Structure." Tevin's eyes narrowed. Guide or govern? No one answered because they didn't need to. In the following days, Earth engineers arrived. They set up control towers, data networks, power grids, hospitals with scanners Nathari didn't understand. Soldiers stood watch on every corner, not fighting anymore, but never truly relaxed. Children stopped playing in the streets. The people whispered at first. They whispered thanks. then they whispered fear. Selin returned to her clinic and found it replaced. Earth had set up a new medical station. Clean, efficient, full of machines. She was told she could work there under supervision. "I have treated my people since before the war," she said. The Earth medic looked at her with polite calm. "Now we can help you do it better." She walked away without another word. One night, deep in the alleys of the eastern sector, something happened that would change everything. A young Nethari boy was caught climbing over a restricted wall. He was unarmed, curious, only 10 years old. Human drone spotted him. It fired a warning shot to close. The boy fell, wounded. He survived. But the next morning, the whispers became shouts. They saved us just to rule us. We traded one empire for another.
At least the Tsar didn't lie about who they were.
Tevin met with Selin, in secret, behind the ruins of the old library. "I don't trust them," Selin said. "Not anymore. They don't trust us either," Tevin replied. "Then why stay?" she asked. "Why keep their soldiers on every street?" Tevin sighed. "Okay, because they think they're helping. And maybe some of them are." She looked at him, tired. Help doesn't feel like a cage. Above the city, on the bridge of the Vindicator, General Riker stood watching the calm below. His officers gave reports. No Zarn activity. Cities secure. Resistance? Passive? Civilian response? He asked. The officer hesitated. Grateful at first. Now, quiet, cold. Riker nodded slowly. "I expected that," he said. "They think we're occupiers," the officer said. Riker turned. His eyes were sharp. "We didn't come here to be loved. Came to end the threat." But even inside Earth's forces, small cracks began to form. Lieutenant Mira Cross walked through a Nethari school. She saw children flinch as drones scanned the halls. She saw teachers with Earth manuals, reading lines they didn't understand. She approached an Earth advisor. "Why are we rewriting their books?" "To align their education with Earth standards," he replied. She frowned. "We didn't come here to erase them." His voice was calm. "Erasing is not the goal. Alignment is." That night, Mira sat in her quarters and stared at her helmet. And for the first time, she wondered, did we become what we swore to fight? Outside the city, a group of Nethari farmers were stopped at a checkpoint. Their carts were searched, their names recorded, their fields marked with Earth's new agricultural drones. One old man whispered to his son, "They saved us from death, but they didn't ask if we wanted to live their way." Son said nothing. Because he didn't know what was worse, the fire of the Zarn, or the silence of the humans. Selin wrote a message to her people. She didn't sign it, but the message spread. We needed warriors. We received conquerors. We wanted peace. Got silence. Earth's boots crush with the same weight, even when they say it's for our protection. We must not forget who we are. We must not lose our voices. It was copied. It was whispered. And soon, it was everywhere. One morning, an Earth patrol found a symbol carved into a wall near the market. It was an Etheri spiral, the mark of unity. But this time, it was wrapped in flame. A warning. A message. We see you. We remember. We're not silent. Back on the Vindicator, General Riker stared at new reports. They spoke of rising tension. Virulent silence. Earth soldier morale dropping. He looked at the stars beyond the glass, and he said only one thing. If they fight us, we'll remind them what mercy costs. The Netheri thought they had been saved, but now they were learning a hard truth. Freedom bought with fire can still come with chains. The lights in the city no longer flickered. Earth's power grids hummed steadily. Streets once dark and ruined now glowed with artificial daylight. Drones flew overhead in perfect loops. Water flowed again through cracked pipes, cleaned by machines. Netheri minds could not comprehend two outsiders. Netheri looked rebuilt, but the fear had only changed shape. It had gone, quiet, cold, and deep. Selin stood at the edge of the stone bridge that overlooked the heart of Alenreth. Her people moved below slowly. Carefully, no running, no laughter, no joy. Even the children spoke in whispers now. They had grown used to silence, trained by the constant buzz of surveillance. Behind her, an Earth soldier stood guard. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. His rifle was enough, deep beneath the city. In the tunnels where the resistance once hid, from the Zarn, they gathered again, not to fight, not yet, but to talk. Tevan sat with 6 other teachers, healers, former soldiers, and even 2 old merchants. They weren't warriors. They were witnesses. "We survived the Zarn," Tevan said. "We cannot survive forgetting who we are." One of them, an old woman, clenched her hands. "What would you have us do?" "Fight the ones who saved us," no, Tevan said quietly. "But we cannot pretend we are free. We can't let fear wear a new face." Another spoke. "Earth does not torture us. They feed our poor. They protect us from the Empire's return. And they watch us," Tevan added. "They rewrite our songs. They monitor our words. They replace our leaders with advisors. Is that not conquest? Just slower. They didn't cheer. They didn't shout. They just sat, thinking. Because Tevan was right above ground. Earth's soldiers began building security zones, walled districts in every major city, where no Netheri could enter without permission. They called them safe corridors. But to the people, they were something else. Fortresses, alien ones, planted in the middle of their homeland. In one of these zones, Lieutenant Myra Cross watched from a tall tower. She had been one of the first to land on Nethari soil. She had believed in the mission, believed Earth could help without becoming the next empire. Now, she wasn't so sure. She saw the checkpoints, the scanning beacons, the endless drone reports. Read logs of innocent civilians marked as potential threats for nothing more than visiting old temples or speaking out loud in the marketplace. And then she saw the new orders. A command sign from Earth's High Command: begin information. Reformation program. Replace local histories. Integrate Nethari educational systems with Earth cultural standards. Remove content that promotes separatism. Mira stared at the words for a long time. She didn't speak, but she did not obey. Elsewhere in the southern villages, something strange began to happen. Earth patrols reported missing drones. Sensors failed. Surveillance. Cameras blacked out. When soldiers investigated, they found nothing but the people of the villages. Stopped meeting their eyes. Stopped offering smiles. Stopped answering questions. Fear was evolving. It had turned into something harder. Defiance. In one village, a soldier reported a passive riot. Funeral held without Earth approval. The body was buried beneath an old Nethari tree, against regulation. When asked why they defied orders, the family responded calmly. "We buried him as we always have, not as you demand." The soldier filed a report. The family received a warning. 2 days later, that tree was cut down by Earth machines for security purposes. The village never held another funeral, but they never forgot. Selin returned to her clinic and found half of her tools, placed with Earth-issued devices. Her notes, her handwritten records of patients were removed, scanned, and corrected by Earth medics. They said it was efficiency. She called it erasure. Later that night, she lit a small candle for her ancestors, something now considered non-scientific practice. She did it anyway, because memory was resistance. General Riker reviewed. Every daily report in silence, more minor resistance, more signs of unrest, more officers growing unfocused. He summoned Colonel Harrow. "How long before they break?" Riker asked. Harrow hesitated. "Sir, I don't think they will." Riker turned. "Explain." "They aren't rebelling. They're remembering. They're doing it quietly. Smartly. That's more dangerous than open war." Riker's jaw tightened. "Then we stop whispering back," he said. "We remind them who holds the skies." That night, across 5 cities, Earth deployed Operation Quiet Signal. A complete blackout. Communications shut down. Data hubs wiped. Temples locked. Libraries sealed. For 48 hours of internal security review, no one was allowed to leave their homes. The skies filled with low-flying Earth drones that buzzed like angry wasps. And in the silence, the message played over and over. From every speaker, Earth stands with Netheri. Earth protects Netheri. Earth leads Netheri. Selen sat in her dark clinic, the message echoing outside. She lit another candle. Tevan sat with her. "You're being watched," he warned. "I know," she said. He placed a small device on the table. "A recording crystal." "What is it?" she asked. He didn't answer. He just activated it, and voices filled the room. Human voices. Soldiers. Officers. Talking in private. "We're not here to save them. They'll break eventually. Every native world does. It just takes pressure." Selen's eyes filled with tears. Not fear, not pain, but resolve. "Then we let the galaxy hear this." The fear the Netheri once felt had changed. It was no longer panic or surrender. It was now something sharper, something focused, because now they knew the truth. The ones who had come with fire were not gone. They had only changed their uniforms, and the people of Netheri were done being silent. In the calm that followed Earth's blackout, something subtle had shifted. The skies above Netheri still shimmered with Earth's massive warships. The streets still echoed with the steady footsteps of armored patrols. But underground, beneath the surface of shattered temples and half-repaired cities, something had started to stir. It wasn't rage, it wasn't chaos, it was purpose, and it burned hotter than anything the Exar had ever feared. Selen walked slowly through the corridors of the old sanctuary tunnels beneath Ellen Reth. Her healer's robes were worn, now patched, darkened with ash and dirt, but she moved with certainty. In her hands, she carried a small box. Inside it was truth. The audio crystal Tevan had given her, the one with the secret. Recordings of Earth's officers was ready to be heard. Ready to remind every Netheri that they had been deceived. In the central chamber, dozens of figures stood in silence. No weapons, no shouting, just listening. The crystal played again. They'll break eventually.
Every
native world does, it just takes pressure. When it ended, no one spoke. Then Tevan stepped forward. "Dude, we gave them our gratitude, our trust, our silence. In return, they gave us chains too pretty to notice." Selen raised her head. "We'll not fight with their weapons. Not yet, but we will resist. In every way that matters." And that night, across the hidden networks of Netheri's underground, the crystal's message was duplicated. Copied, spread in the cities above. The changes were quiet but unmistakable. Earth's surveillance towers began experiencing mysterious power losses. Communication relays stuttered and crashed. Supply drones vanished mid-dash flight at first. Earth Command called it technical interference, but their soldiers knew better. The eyes of the Netheri changed. They no longer looked up in awe. They looked forward, steady, measuring, waiting. "Lieutenant." Myra Cross watched from the command balcony of Security Zone 14. She had just returned from a failed inspection in the Southern District. Every drone had gone dark. No cause found. No suspects caught. Her team reported passive resistance, but she could feel it. This wasn't passive. It was practiced. She turned to her second, Sergeant Olin. "Do they know how close they are to making us enemies?" Asked Olin didn't reply, because he didn't know. Inside Earth's central base in Alanareth, General Riker stood before a new hologram. It displayed zones across the planet marked in read interference, data loss, troop avoidance, infrastructure. "Sabotage. It's coordinated," Harrow said grimly. "They're working together. Silent local cells. No direct attacks, just small fires everywhere." Riker didn't blink. "They're building something," he said. "Not weapons. Not yet. But loyalty. Unity. That's more dangerous than guns." He turned to the room of officers. "End it the next day." Earth Command authorized directive. Echo-breach. Mass scans. Forced interrogations. Relocation of suspected organizers. Temples searched. Libraries shut. Public gatherings limited to under 5 people. They said it was preventive security, but the people called it something else. Occupation. Without bullets. In the mountain city of Kalsarath, 3 Earth mechs tore down a monument and ancient statue of the first Nethari healer. Selen watched from the shadows, jaw clenched. A child beside her asked softly, "Why are they doing this?" She answered without looking away, "'Cause they're afraid of what we remember." That night, she painted the symbol of the spiral flame on the wall of the clinic. By morning, 20 more had appeared across the city. Myra Cross found one near her quarters. She stared at the swirling flame pattern. It wasn't graffiti. It was art, old, Nethari, but burning, not in fear, in transformation. She touched her. "Come, Commander. They're not trying to destroy us. They're becoming something stronger." She paused, "And we're the ones showing them how." In the tunnels below Kalsarath, Selen and Tevan met again. This time, there were dozens with them. Scholars, students, artists, former temple guardians, even one Nethari who had once worked as an Earth translator. "We have no ships," one said. "No soldiers, but we have stories," Selen replied. "And now we control the truth," another asked, "if we rise." "What if Earth burns us down?" Tevan stepped forward. "And let the galaxy see it. Let them see who Earth really is, not saviors, but conquerors who wear kind words like armor." They lit a beacon of their own, a signal-coded, ancient, hidden in old star chants. It spread across local networks, then beyond, to trade ships, to exiles, to wandering satellites. A warning. A truth. Nethari was saved by war. But now, we burn in silence. The fire has not gone out. It has moved beneath, and it will rise again. Up in orbit, aboard the Vindicator, Earth's AI systems flagged the signal but couldn't decode. Cultural interference, the technician said. "We don't have the language route." Riker looked out the VIEWPORT dot, and for the first time, his voice was cold with uncertainty. "Then learn it, for it becomes their weapon." The fires were no longer explosions. They were ideas, and now they were everywhere. The signal spread faster than anyone expected. At first, Earth's command dismissed it just another encrypted broadcast buried inside ancient Nethari song lore. Their machines couldn't crack the language. Their translators couldn't follow the rhythm, but what they didn't understand, they feared. What they feared, they tried to erase, only it was too late, because the message wasn't meant for Earth. It was meant for the galaxy, and the galaxy was listening. Selen walked through the old university ruins, now turned into a resistance communications hub. What used to be lecture halls had become rooms full of whispers and data. Young Nethari, who once studied medicine and art, now learned how to reroute Earth's satellites, jam patrol scans, and send silent pings across space. They didn't need warships. They had stories proof, and they had begun releasing them clips of Earth interrogations, silent footage of Earth soldiers dragging Nethari elders from their homes, and voice recordings from Earth officers speaking about the need to reform the planet. At first, it spread across local colonies. Then neutral traders picked it up. Then news outposts. Then the Galnet. The story had reached the stars, and Earth couldn't stop it. General Riker stood motionless in his command chamber aboard the Vindicator, watching. Transmission logs fill his screen. Colonial media headlines blinked in red. Earth's peacekeepers or silent invaders? Nethari signal uncovers dark truths beneath aid mission. Human presence on Nethari world sparks galactic debate. Riker's second-in-command Harrow spoke grimly. "We've lost control of the narrative, sir." Riker didn't respond at first, then he turned. "Then it's time we remind them why Earth is feared." On the ground, Earth's soldiers began sweeping cities block by block. No more tolerance. No more careful diplomacy this time. They were hunting the truth. They raided community halls. They stormed temples. They detained scholars. And yet, the messages still spread. One signal taken down, 2 more appeared. They had awakened something far worse than rebellion. They had made martyrs. Lieutenant Mira Cross watched helplessly as her squad dragged a Nethari teacher into custody. He had No weapon. Just a scroll in his hands. He turned to her as they bound him. I used to teach your history to our children, he said. I teach them how to survive yours. Mira said nothing. But later that night, she opened one of the banned files, Selen's message, encoded and translated. And for the first time, she cried, not from shame, from realization. Elsewhere, Selen and Tevin watched a holo report from a neutral planet. A representative from the Valexi people was giving a public statement. Earth speaks of peace, but walks with boots. If what the Nethari say is true, then all of us must ask, is this the future Earth offers us? Applause followed, and in dozens of systems. Leaders began to pause their negotiations with Earth. Human embassies were suddenly quiet, but Riker wasn't done. He launched Operation Scorchlight, not against the Nethari, against their story, data. Scramblers fried Nethari, networks. Every library's archives were digitized, and then corrupted. Earth issued a statement claiming the transmissions were fabricated by Zarn agents, warning the galaxy not to fall for alien propaganda. But no one believed it, because the truth had a heartbeat now, and it was too loud to silence. Selen's team moved deeper underground. Into the vaults beneath the old capital, there hidden in crystal chambers were the ancient recordings of Nethari. History unfiltered by Earth, untouched by war. She turned to Tevin. If they want to burn our past, then we'll make it our weapon. They began transmitting again, this time with everything, not just Earth's crimes, but Nethari memory, culture, music, poetry, unfiltered, unafraid. Across Nethari, murals appeared overnight, not in paint, but in light, projected from rooftops. One showed an Earth soldier dragging a Nethari child, another Salon's face, lit by flame, and below it, words written in both languages. Truth never needed weapons. It only needed to be seen. Even Earth's own troops began to falter. Desertion reports grew. Some soldiers refused orders. Lieutenant Myra Krause submitted her resignation. She no longer believed they were there to protect anything, and as she walked through the gates of Zone 14, leaving her armor behind, she saw a young Nethari girl hand her a flower, not with fear, but with thanks. The resistance never fired a shot, but they had done the impossible. They turned Earth's own victory into a shadow. Their presence now meant occupation. Their aid now looked like control. Their silence had become the loudest sound in the galaxy. Back on Earth, the Senate was in chaos. Admirals argued on live feeds. One question echoed everywhere. Did we save the Nethari or conquer them? Answer, because every time they tried, another message appeared. Another truth, another story in Riker. He watched the fire spread. Not with anger, but with understanding. They wanted to be heard, he whispered. Now they are. He turned off the screen, and for the first time since his arrival, he felt old, because in the end it wasn't Earth's fleet that had shaped the future of Nethari. It was their voices. The fire beneath the silence had become something else. A storm, and the galaxy was listening. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. Every screen across the galaxy and spaceports, deep mining colonies, merchant ships, and peaceful garden worlds flashed the same headline. Nethari broadcast goes viral, Earth's aid or empire. The broadcast wasn't polished. No grand voiceover, no explosions. Just a steady image of a Nethari healer speaking from the heart. Selen, her voice was calm, her eyes steady. We asked for help, not chains. We were dying. You saved us, then taught us to forget who we were. We do not blame Earth's people, but your leaders. They treat our memory as infection. We are not broken. We are Nethari. The stars must choose what they stand for. There was no anger in her tone, only truth. And that was the sharpest weapon of all. On the Vindicator. General Riker watched it play. He said nothing. He didn't need to. His command center was silent. rows of officers watching the same message. Echoing across every screen, Harrow broke the silence. "Sir, over 20 systems just suspended Earth diplomatic talks. 5 have recalled ambassadors. Trade routes are being reviewed." Riker's voice was low, and the military. "Split," Harrow replied. "Half want to crack down. The others think we've gone too far." Riker's jaw clenched, so it begins. In the outer colonies of the Veltrax Pact, a decision was made. They sent aid to the Nethari, not weapons, but food, books, medical supplies, crews who asked for nothing in return. When Earth warned them not to interfere, the Veltrax replied, "We help those who still remember who they are." That single line was broadcast on Galnet within hours, and the galaxy exploded with debate. On the diplomatic moon of Solera Prime, hundreds of delegates gathered for an emergency assembly. At the center of the glowing chamber, a single voice stood. Tall Representative Aaye of the Xeon Coalition. "If we let this stand," she said, pointing at the Earth's envoy, "then none of us are safe. If peace becomes control, if mercy becomes obedience, then what hope does any world have?" The Earth's ambassador responded with protocol and firm language. He talked of stability, of threats, of the dangers of separatism. But his voice was drowned in silence. The galaxy had already chosen which words they believed. Down on Nethari soil, change was visible. Earth patrols no longer walked with pride. Now they moved in pairs, nervous eyes scanning every corner. The murals were no longer just art, they were declarations. Spiral flames on rooftops, songs of resistance, played through repurposed loudspeakers, and everywhere Earth tried to silence. More rose in reply. Mira Cross, once a soldier, now an exile, traveled between Nethari settlements, helping people recover Earth stolen. History, she became a symbol, not of war, but of choice, of someone who stepped away from power. Selen and Tevan stood atop the rebuilt university steps. This time not in secret. Thousands of Nethari gathered before them, holding nothing but candles and memory. "We were almost lost," Selen said, "but you, all of you, kept our fire alive." The crowd didn't cheer. They stood in quiet. Unity. And it was louder than any battle cry. Earth's fleet, still in orbit, received a coded message from home. Stand down. Begin exit protocols. Political fallout too great. Turn control to locals. Riker read it once, then again, he didn't look surprised. He only whispered to himself, "They didn't beat us with ships. They'd beat us with a story." A day later, Earth transports began lifting off. Not all soldiers left. Some stayed without orders, some left their weapons behind, some apologized, but many just vanished, unable to face what they had become. The final Earth ship to leave was the Vindicator. General Riker didn't give a speech. He didn't offer farewell. He only left one message in Earth, Command's records. Never underestimate the strength of memory. We gave them steel. They gave us truth. And truth was heavier. Above the planet, as the last human warship vanished into FTL jump space, the stars returned clear, peaceful, and full of new voices. Across the galaxy, from quiet farming moons to massive trade hubs. A decision had been made. Not with guns, but with hearts. They stood with the Nethari, not because they hated Earth, but because they remembered what it meant to be free. Because on that day, the galaxy chose a side, and it chose the ones who had the courage to keep their story alive. Long after the last Earth warship had vanished from Nethari skies, a strange stillness fell over the planet. Not the kind born from fear or silence, but something deeper. Reflection. The people of Nethari no longer moved with caution. No longer. Looked over their shoulders for drones? The air felt lighter. The city, still cracked and scorched in places, were alive again. Music returned to the streets. Candles burned in temples once sealed by Earth's soldiers. Children played under banners of swirling flame and starlight. The war was over. But what had it left behind? Selen walked through the Grand University's main atrium, where once there had been ash and broken glass. Now stood bookshelves, stone carvings, and laughter. Young Nathari students moved through the halls, holding datapads and ancient scrolls. Alike, some studied science, some studied language, all studied memory. Murals stretched across the ceiling now, a spiral burning in the sky, with stars orbiting it. At the center stood not warriors, not soldiers, but a child. Holding a torch of knowledge, Selen smiled. The legacy was no longer about who had the biggest guns. It was about who had the deepest roots. Tevan stood on the balcony of the rebuilt temple. Of first light, he overlooked a vast gathering of Nathari leaders, healers, poets, scholars, farmers, and even former resistance members. For the first time in generations, there was no outside power whispering in their ears, just themselves, their planet, their truth. He raised his voice. We were nearly destroyed, then we were nearly erased, but what they couldn't take was our story. The Deathworlders came with fire, they left with silence. And from that silence we found ourselves again. Across the galaxy, the echoes of the Nethari resistance reshaped politics and power. Earth was no longer seen as a savior, but as a reminder that even the strong must be questioned, that even help must come with honesty. Treaties changed. New laws were passed, limiting military assistance to developing worlds. Galactic culture took a new turn, one that prized sovereignty over speed, dignity over dominance, and always the symbol of the spiral. Flame flickered in the background, painted on walls, etched into ships, stitched into flags, a symbol of survival through truth. Myra Cross never returned to Earth. She became a traveler, a quiet voice in peace conferences, an ally to the forgotten. When people asked her why she turned against her own fleet, she always gave the same answer. Because I remembered that saving people doesn't mean replacing them. On Earth, Riker was summoned to testify before the Senate. He stood alone. No armor, no war medals, only experience. They asked him if the operation had failed. He replied, militarily, no. We controlled every city, every system, but strategically, morally, culturally. We lost the moment. We stopped listening. They were a dying people. We could have helped them heal. Instead, we tried to make them into us. His words were broadcast galaxy-wide, and in that moment, Earth just for a second seemed human again. Back on Nathari, a new celebration was born. The Day of the Flame. It wasn't about war. It wasn't about loss. It was about remembering the moment they chose to rise without violence, to answer control with culture, to meet fear with unity, in a quiet village near the high mountains. Selen planted a tree, not just any tree. It was from a seed hidden beneath a temple, long ago kept safe during the Zarn invasion. Then again during Earth's occupation, it would grow slowly, deeply, without force, without fear. Around it, children gathered and asked her, was Earth the enemy? She paused, then answered carefully, no, but they forgot to see us. And we forgot to speak until it was almost too late. Another child asked, will they come back? Selen looked to the stars and smiled. Maybe, but next time, they'll have to listen. And in the sky above, the stars burned just as brightly as ever, but now. They held the stories of a people who had faced extinction, who had survived occupation, and who had taught the galaxy that mercy, memory, truth were stronger than any fleet. This was the legacy the Deathworlders left behind. Not fear, not fire, but a reminder that the smallest voice, if it speaks clearly enough, can shake the entire galaxy.